Hello and welcome everybody to this live presentation of Articy Draft. My name is Jan and I'm hosting your presentation today. If you have any questions about our software, please do not hesitate to reach out to us anytime. You can also contact us via our social media channels, our website articy.com, or via email at sales@articy.com. So let's get started. In one sentence, Articy Draft is a visual game design / game database solution. You can use it to plan and manage interactive, non-linear content during pre-production, like in a brainstorming session, to seize a catchy dialogue, or lay down the initial traits of a great character, as well as for production, since all of your data can be exported to Unity or Unreal. Articy Draft itself has three main pillars: the flow, entities, and locations. The flow is the main area to plan and manage non-linear structures like quests, dialogues, or skill trees, for example. This is your go-to tool for anything that's supposed to contain a player's choice. The second pillar are entities. This is our term for any kind of objects you want the player to be able to interact with. An entity could be a non-playing character, a mob, a vehicle, an item, or even a buff or a skill. The third pillar are locations, a sketching tool which helps you plan the stages of your project. That being said, let's dive right in. So this is the flow. This is no big surprise. A smart zoomable canvas, you can move it around. That's nothing special. The twist that we have here is our nested approach. Think of it as folders on your hard disk, kind of like, like if you have music and you'd have a top folder of genres, and then you have subfolders like albums and bands, and that helps you structure your music. And the same principle applies to Articy Draft. You have a top folder, and you can actually dive into the subfolders and again and reveal their structure, and by this have a very structured approach towards your project. The second twist that we have is everything is connected to everything. Think of it as being hyperlinks, like in a wiki, or email attachments. And the clue here is that you can move between different areas of your project without losing your creative focus. So if you're writing a dialogue, for instance, and you want to check if a character is in sync with the content you're writing, you can quickly just double click on the entity, jump to it, check if the content makes sense or not, and then quickly navigate back to the area where you left off and continue. So this whole approach, the idea behind it is that you never lose your creative momentum. You might have noticed in the flow here that some pins are colored and some are not. And the reason behind this is that you can not only lay out and plan your scenes or your levels, you can also give them a high-level game logic, which means basically you can have conditions that check if a certain value is met, and only by then you can actually progress through that selected content. And that's marked here with these colored pins. So you can implement a high-level game logic and plan it and even test it out in Articy Draft without having to build a technical prototype. The same also applies to, on the outside, for instructions. So if you have played through a certain content, then you can change a game state, and then you can make sure, for instance, that you don't repeat a dialogue over and over again. If you think of a classical situation in Dragon Age, for instance, and you're talking to an NPC, and you ask him the same question over and over again, which was possible in the game, that can be quite boring. So if you want to spice it up a little bit, you could have different answers upon repeating the same question over and over again. And the NPC at a certain point saying, listen, you have asked me this question 3 times, I'm not willing to give you an answer anymore, and the player has to find a different solution. And the nice part is this game logic that you can implement here, you can export all that data ready to use to Unity or Unreal. Every object within Articy Draft itself has also something which we call templates. Basically, you can assign any type of data. Let me just quickly switch this to English here. Here we go. Here we go. And great, I don't have a template for this object. Just let me quickly change it and go to a dialog because I know I have one here. Here we go. So what I want to show you is with every type of object you have within Articy Draft, you can assign it a template. Think of it as being like a character sheet. Only the big difference is here that you can assign any type of data that's relevant to the game, or you can also even include production data, like for instance, who's working on this object via a very easy drag and drop interface. And also all of this data can be used in your game engine and afterwards in your game. And the operation is pretty simple. You basically click on, no, I should first say our templates are built up modular. A template is made up of features and a feature is made up of properties. And that way you can actually reuse certain features within different templates. And what I wanted to show you is that with this interface, you can actually quickly assign different properties to a feature. Like for instance, we want to have a Boolean here, or we want to add a number value, or a text, or I don't know, a large text, or a drop-down menu. You can assign all this additional data here. You click on Apply, and it is automatically assigned to this feature of this whole template. And if you have multiple objects using this template, then it will be propagated throughout the whole project, and all of the objects that use this template have been updated with these additional properties to this feature. This is what I would like to show you at this point regarding the flow. It might be that we have a bit more specific questions afterwards, but I don't want to drop too much on you right now. Just think of the flow as being your, as I said in the opening, this is your tool, your choice of tool if you want to make a player choice and you want to plan it out, you want to iterate on that, be it during pre-production, if you're having this brainstorming session, you're thinking about the content you want to actually flesh out and iterate upon, or if you're doing this also in production. That being said, let's jump to the second pillar, to entities. As I said in the beginning, entities is our generic term for any type of object you want to be able to interact with. I have two examples here. Characters, this is not going to be a big surprise. And by the way, we're not good at names, so please don't be so harsh with Dr. Articy here. As you can see also, we have a completely different templates set up here for this guy. And actually it represents if he is liked or disliked by anybody. And these are resolved automatically with with a property which we called calculated reference strips. I don't want to show this in too much detail, but just keep in mind that you could actually, in the background, these calculated reference strips, they actually have a query, and they can pre-populate fields within your template with content that relates to your project. So you could also have, for instance, a query, please show me all objects that are usable between level 5 and 10 of the class armor for the head out of iron. And then you could have just a list of objects that you have in your database. And I know actually from a project that's been made by a company in Germany, they used from Articy Draft only the template system for their mobile game. Now I got trailed off. What I want to show you. Yes, entities. So this is a character, for instance. We also used entities. I'm sorry. We also used entities for items. And we used here the template system in a completely different way. It actually represents here a crafting system. So if I combine a banana with sleeping pills, I get, big surprise, a banana with sleeping pills, and vice versa, as you can see. And this would be the final object. And on top, we have here different slots that actually have witty responses if you want to include them on success or on failure, for instance. The third pillar I wanted to mention is locations. As I said, it's a sketching tool, so it's not a fully fledged level editor that you would have in a game engine, for instance, but it's something very iteration friendly that fills the gap between your artist doing a sketch on a piece of paper in the initial moment and before you actually start working on the game in your engine or building the levels in your engine. And as I said, the idea is that you have something iteration friendly, something to basically share your game vision with other team members, because if we're both in a team discussion and I'm talking about a castle and I have in my mind a castle from let's say Lord of the Rings or like something doomy and dark, and you're thinking of a castle like Disney, although we're talking about the same word, it's a completely different visual representation of what the castle actually is. So it's very important to actually give the rest of the team a very precise idea what your game vision is. So for locations, you can actually use images in the background. In this case, we have a 2D image because this is a 2D point-and-click adventure in this project. I will quickly, or in a moment, show you an RPG where we use the same principles to communicate the game vision, but it's not a 2D vision, it's a 3D top-on view. But just to give you a sense of how this works, so we used an image in the background. We have actually a zone here. This zone also has a template. And actually, in the demo projects, we have for Unreal and for Unity. You can interact with this zone, which means in the game you hit the guy with a crowbar. And the mechanics behind that, that you get a negative moral value, they all come from Articy. They're actually in these scripts here. And also the dialogue that's fired up. I don't know if you can read it. Oops, I slipped and dropped the crowbar, but the kind doctor catched it. All that data comes from Articy, and you can test that content in Unity and Unreal without actually having to get the test version of Articy Draft, because the projects for Unreal and Unity are already there, and you can see how we use the data in these projects. So the other thing I wanted to show you here is, like with the flow, everything can be connected to everything. In this case, this would be one scene. And here is the connection to the next scene. We linked it with a location. Let me now jump or switch the project to Galahad. This is our RPG project to give you a different idea. So again, we use an image in the background, and we have these basically 5 levels, which represent the 5 areas for this RPG where the character will actually go through. And here we used these geometric forms to represent how we see the top-down view of the castle. And what I meant by iteration friendly. So I could have the dark forest, I could have the dark forest maybe here behind the jousting field, or we could link, let's say, the boss, the brigand leader in Arthur's castle. And if you would like to, I don't know, have an item, let's say Excalibur in Camelot, so we can place it here and we can move this stuff around. Articy Draft, the purpose from the whole software in any area is that you always keep a close overview of the content you're currently working on. This is why we have kind of like a PowerPoint-ish, not PowerPoint, that we have a kind of like, what's the tool I'm looking for? Anyway, we have layers. I made a big build-up and I forgot the name I was going for. We have layers. And the whole purpose behind these layers is that you always see the content that's relevant to you, because at a certain point this could be too crowded. So you can blend out, or you can display or choose to not display certain areas of your project. So you can still work or focus your work on specific areas. So if you don't want to see anything that's quest related, you just want to work on the characters, you can just basically not display all the other content, just work on the area that's relevant to you. And on top of that, you can also use art you found on top, like online, for instance, to include an additional layer. So this could be an image that we wanted to display the forest. So you have a very, very easy way of actually displaying content within Articy Draft. And as I said, getting everybody on the same page regarding the game vision. Now let me jump back to the initial project I was showing you. So I mentioned in the beginning, we have a way of actually presenting this content to other people. And it's a kind of like PowerPoint presentation environment. It uses the images we have actually assigned to this project. Let me just split the screen. You can see better what I can see. And you can navigate through this content here. And the idea is that already on this level, you have a way to, again, communicate the project better to other team members so they're more in the zone. And it's more a natural environment than actually giving somebody a big block of paper and telling them, read through this and let's talk in an hour. And as you can see, these are all the variables we have in the project. And you can see now here, this variable or this choice is marked red because the condition has not yet been met. And this condition is choosable. Basically, why both are displayed is because we're in the analysis mode, and this is what the game designer sees, because for design purposes, you may want to see the complete project and all the choices that are available, even though the conditions are not met. And this is what the player actually sees. So let's make this choice here. And now you can see this is the condition that has to be checked. Now I'm parsing through the dialogue as we've briefly seen in the flow. And now you can see on the right-hand side, we just highlight this a bit more, that this variable actually changed and from false to true, and now the current value is true. So you not only have an option to actually play through content, test content, you also have a way to track your variables and how they change upon your choices, which I think is also a very, very important feature if you're thinking about big projects and you're trying to bring all of them together. And this is a way how you can actually keep track of them. Again, here are three choices. One is marked red because this option is not valid, but still in the, for the design purpose, you may want to actually proceed and check why this condition has not yet been met and what's the reason why I can play this actually here. So I've very briefly shown you the flow. I've shown you entities. I've shown you locations. Journeys is our term for the presentation mode I've just shown you right now. I think assets is pretty much self-explaining. This is any type of external content you want to include inside of Articy Draft. This could be audio files. This could be video files. This could be a hyperlink. Basically anything you want to include in your project as an external file and you want to reference. That's assets, and you can import them. Documents is our writing environment. We got the feedback with the release of the first version that a lot of people were not that comfortable at the start of a project writing content within nodes. So we wanted to give writers a bit more of a text editor environment that they can use, that they're more used to at the beginning of the project to just, you know, get that initial pace, get started, and just have something you can show off in the first meeting, I guess. You can use the text editor environment, as we call it documents, for traditional game design documents. By the way, a nice thing is you can also link objects in here. Like for instance, if I want to link the hamster here, and if I rename the hamster, let's call him Bob, then this also propagates through every link that you used either in the game, in the document here, or if you also hyperlinked an object within the flow, then it's also updated there automatically. But you can not only write this type of content, like game design documents here, you can also, if you want to, write dialogues. Just again, let me split the screen here. Because the nice part would be, I mean, we wanted to give writers a way to conveniently convert whatever they've created into the flow. So you can use a drag and drop operation. And what happens in the background is that actually this content is converted into, or more precisely copy and paste into new objects. And as you can see, they contain the same information here. And now our vision is that you can actually branch out here and add additional catchy responses, because we feel that the flow is the area to work if it comes to nonlinear choices. So our vision how you would actually set up a workflow is you could start writing small chunks of content within documents and then always convert them to the flow and just kind of like that gradually grow your project. Since I always get the question on this at this point, it's a one-way direction, it's not bidirectional, because as I said, these objects are created, they don't have the same database. So if I make any changes here, they don't have an effect on the flow, and vice versa. And I can't convert the flow back into a document. Sadly, that's not possible. We have plans of modifying this, but so far, sadly, there are only plans, and there are no, there's not anything detailed I can share at this point regarding this feature. But trust me, we've had quite a few questions in this regard. So I've shown you the flow, I've shown you entities, I've shown you locations, documents, journeys, and assets. I've also shown you the template design. One quick one quick look at the global variables. So you can use variables for conditions and instructions, and you can also change properties within objects, for instance. And these are all the variables we have in the project here. And the property inspector is a nice way of keeping track of content. So if you have two screens, or in this case, I have one screen, I'm trying to show content on the other side, and I don't always want to double click and open properties, I can just have this side listening, basically, and any object I click on, it displays the templates. So if I actually have a template here, there we go. And now if I go to this object, no template here, but if I go back, then I can always see the template. So it's a nice way of actually optimizing a workflow at this point. So I think that concludes it from my side as initial walkthrough through Articy. As I said, I don't want to overwhelm you with too much information at the beginning, but if anybody of you is interested, we'd be happy to set up individual demonstrations for you and also talk more about your use case and your requirements on your side. I haven't checked the chat yet because I have helpers who are doing that for me. But if there are any questions in the chat, this is the great moment for you to actually post them, and I'll be able to respond to them. Any questions at all from you guys? Sure, shoot. I think this has actually been recorded, or we will make it available, so no worries. And if you have anything specific, you can also reach out to us to either via Twitter or email or whatever. So we can, if you have any open questions, we can always deal with that. Let me just read the question above you. Whew. Um, well, you can link audio files to objects, and we have actually voiceover helper plugin that converts texts into speech to text files, and you can play them out with the presentation mode. And you can use those audio files also in the game engine. So it depends how far you want to go, but I don't see a technical reason why you couldn't use. You could bypass audio programs if you want to. I mean, in the end, all the data will land in your engine anyways, and you have to handle also the audio there. But if you use the assets from Articy Draft, and they actually know when they're supposed to be used because they're linked to the according object, then you can play them out. Yeah, that's possible. So Luminance 666, if I understand your question correctly, the one before, you wanted to know if you switch an emote of a 2D character or a UI dialogue. So if, let's say you have a flow object, and within it you have a template information like I want to change the character's emotion. That's possible. I mean, in the end, you just have to the engine. In the engine, you have to fine-tune what that actually represents on the engine side. But once it reads, it parses through that code, that data, then and you have set it up how it's supposed to react upon that, then it knows what to do. Does that answer your question? So Alcinous, we don't have integration with Grammarly as far as I'm aware. We have some spell checking within the software itself. So that's supported, and you can also add additional words to the dictionary that are not included in the regular dictionary. That's possible. I don't think, however, that we have something like grammar or syntax errors. So I'm afraid I can't help you there. But as a workaround, you could export content to Word or Excel and also check if the spell correction there works. And then if you have any errors pop up there, then you could update them with an Articy Draft, and then that would also be a way. Not quite sure what you mean. We could integrate to Word and Unreal Engine, but you can export any type of, I mean, if you want, I can show this to you. Let me quickly open this up here. By the way, I just realized I haven't actually shown you all the exports we have here. So these are all the exports we have. You can export all the project content to Word, Excel. We also have an Excel sheet for re-import, so if you want to make bulk changes outside of Articy Draft within Excel. We have the technical exports. So you can export certain areas of your project to Word and then use the spell correction and grammar, which is the one you're looking for, grammar within Word. And then if you see any big mistakes there, you can then update the project within Articy Draft. And then you could export that content to your engine. But we don't have, as I said, we don't have anything, we don't have any support for syntax correction within Articy Draft itself. We only have spell checks for the actual wording. I hope that answers your question. I mean, if we had plans to cooperate with somebody who supported grammar, but as far as I know, that didn't go very far because there were some legal issues there that prevented a further discussion. So the $100 version on Steam, that's the single user version. And that's the lifetime price. You can also subscribe on Steam to Articy Draft for, I think, $6 a month. And you can cancel that each and every month, or you can also subscribe via our website. And the $50 per month, you mentioned that's for multi-user. To be more precise, we have, as a starter package, team bundles. The basic team bundle, I think, starts at 49 euros, and that contains 2 users. And then the next tier has 3 users and 2 viewers for 59 euros. And then the top tier has 4 users and 5 viewers. And you can subscribe them also on a monthly basis. However, they have a mandatory runtime of 6 months. Did that answer your question regarding Steam? I should point out, you can have 2 people using single user licenses, but the single user version is not meant for collaborative working or working together. So still we have very small teams. They put the Articy Draft project on a shared folder. So both PCs or both users can actually access them. But you have to keep in mind that they are individual projects. So if both people access the project folder at the same time, this can lead to data corruption. Hozuka, you can have in the game, you can change the images that are displayed, but the images you use in the dialogue themselves, let me just show you this here. So they are static, right? But you could, for instance, have, this is a very simplistic approach. Bear with me here. So let's say, oh right, this is a dialogue. Wait a minute, I can't assign it here. So you could have, no, I want to do this way. This makes more sense. So let's say this would be this makes it a bit more better. So this would be the first dialogue line, and now you want to have an emotion change, for instance, right? So you could then, this is a very simplistic approach. You could say this is the dialogue, and then according to response, I want the expression to change, and this could be the image you want to have. This is very, very brute force. I'd prefer a more elegant approach to have this within the template, for instance, or you could have different following objects, and then according to if it's a rude answer or if it's a nice answer, then you could have the different images within the template, and then the system or the engine knows which object is or which image is supposed to be displayed. So that's possible, not within the flow, but in the engine. I hope that answers your question. I'm just reading through your last question. Give me a second. I'm not quite sure I understand your question. Um, yeah. Gotcha. Okay. Sorry that it took me longer to comprehend your question. So you're asking if multiple people using the version on Steam, if they can work together. If you want to work together, I'd highly advise to use the multi-user version, which is only available on our website. This has to do due to technical restraints, because Steam is a gaming platform, and how we use the Articy server as a Windows service, this option is not available, sadly, on Steam. So if you want multiple people to work together, you have to use the multi-user version. Single user, you can bypass it to a small certain amount. But as I said, if two people or if two single users are sharing the same project folder and they're accessing at the same time, this can lead to data corruption and break your project. So it's not something I would recommend. I mean, you can obviously, somebody's working on the project at a certain time, and then the other one is working on the project, and you communicate via a chat platform or via Skype or Zoom or whatever, so you're sure that you don't actually break it, right? But just now reading through your question. Right, I'm sorry, the source control, that's everything all there, that's the multi-user version, where we support SVN and Perforce. Then you also have changelog, and you can revert to earlier versions of the software. So that's why in a professional environment, if you are more than two people working on a project, or more than two people who are working on the content of the project, I'd recommend to use the multi-user version. I hope that answers now your question. Thank you so much for your questions. Any other questions I can answer? I haven't. Whoa, that was loud. I haven't played Stardew Valley so far, I'm afraid. With 3 kids at home, you don't get to play that much, sadly. Thank you so much, Helm Systems. Hazuka, it's you don't need any programming experience. I mean, it always, in the end, it always depends on how far you want to take the program, right? You don't have to use our scripting language. You don't have to use it to lay out your high-level game logic. You could also just insert comments there, text information that would help afterwards your programmers in the engine, that they know actually what you want to happen here. So if you could also have information like do a spell check on dexterity or check if a certain item is in place. But it helps you to leave the information at the area where the other person that's helping you to work on the project actually understand what you want to do at this point. And then that's what I mean. You can take it as far. I mean, in the end, the scripting language we use, it has, I think, 10 or 15 operators. So it's not too difficult to learn if you want to. But I can also understand people who are like very hesitant to actually go into learning a coding language. But I wouldn't say that our scripting language is as far as that. But so I guess the answer to your question is you don't have to, but if you know a bit around, it helps. Does that answer your question? You're welcome. And thank you so much for the praise here. I'm merely the guy showing off the software. The real magic is done by the designers and the coders in their basements. No, I'm just kidding. Who are actually working on the software. So I'll be sure to pass on your compliments to them. Yeah, what R3Lock just pointed out, thank you so much for that. We actually have from our marketing team a really great tutorial series where they talk in detail about all the different features of Articy Draft, and they go through this at a very relaxed pace and touch all the different subjects. So this is a really good point to actually get to know the software. And as I said in the beginning, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to our team anytime. We're happy to answer questions. Don't be afraid. No question is too stupid. We're here to help. And we like to help everybody who's using our software in a project to see them through until the end. So I take pride in the sentence that we believe in partnership. Are there any further questions I can answer at this point? By the way, I just got the feedback from our team. I should point out that everybody who is visiting IWOCON, they get a 6-month voucher for Articy Draft. So this should give you enough time to actually play around with the software and get to know it. So lucky you. I have to admit, I'm not quite sure how the redeeming process works. I think it's a code, and there's a certain landing page, and you just you can find it in the booth, and you just go to the link, and then you enter the code, and then you get the version sent home to you for 6 months. Thank you so much, Helm Systems, for pointing out where we're located. I wasn't aware of it. By the way, it's an amazing booth. Well, I think that concludes it for now. Thank you so much once again for joining us on our stream. Thank you for bearing with me. Stay safe, and hope to see you guys soon and enjoy the convention. All the best, guys.